Trucker Dump, episode 132. In today's episode, we've got a lot of news stories, including some recalls, some autonomous truck stuff, some good news for diabetic truckers, and some more thoughts about dash cams. We'll also talk about some naughty booters and some even naughtier truckers. And I'll tell you a couple ways you can get your voice heard to make truck driving a better job. We'll also talk about what makes a good trucking company, and of course, the death of a trucking icon. Trucker Grub is from driver Dave, who sends in a pretty unique one. And the feedback section, we hear from Allie, who has a tailgating tale, Tim, who's considering a switch from IT to trucking, and Anthony's oddest question I've ever received leads to a discussion of truck driving schools. The main topic for today's show is, should we call out bad truckers? This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by the Escort mobile emergency device from Citadel Fleet Safety and, well, me.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. If you're a first-timer, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 21-year truck driver. I am a author of 2 ebooks. One is called Trucking Life, and another is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. Those are available anywhere you feel like looking for them, like Amazon or iBooks or my website, abouttruckdriving.com. I'm obviously a podcaster also and a blogger. And here's a little-known fact. I just got a pre-pass after many years of not having one. And I was always like, my company has a pretty good safety record, so the scales don't hassle me too much. It's not that big of a deal that I'm going to be getting a pre-pass again. Well, I gotta say, it just warms my little heart. Gives a little pitter-patter every time I hear that green, that beep, beep, beep light that lets me go past it. It's really nice. Even though, like I said, they never really harassed me much in the first place, but it just gives you that little jump of joy to be able to bypass the scale while everybody else is pulling in. So that's really cool. So, hey, I hope you all have been taking advantage of Driver Appreciation Month, which was in September. By the way, I'm recording this in the Memphis area, and it's the 29th. I have been shooting for the 1st of the month, and I have been failing. Well, no, I've done pretty good the last couple of months, I think. But, yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it on this one because I'm just recording this now, and then I got to edit and all that other good junk, too. Man, there's a lot that goes into this after the initial recording's done. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, Driver Appreciation Month. In September, I'm guessing most of you already knew this, but Pilot Flying J was running a special where they were like giving away something free every day. I don't know if the other truck stops were doing that. I know Love's wasn't, but I only go there every once in a while. I go to Pilot Flying J mostly because that's where I'm required to fuel, and I can't remember the last time I stepped in a petrol or TA, so maybe they had something going on too. But basically, if you had the Pilot Flying J app, you could save an offer each day, and it would, give you a little something. Maybe it was a free coffee or a free fountain drink or a free Pepsi or Mountain Dew or candy bar, chips, whatever. It was. The only thing bad about it is I wish they would give us some healthier options. I mean, I know they're kind of at the whim of, the other companies who want to partner with them. And, Pepsi, I'm sure, wanted to give away some free stuff for the drivers. And so Pilot went along with that. But, nobody ever, offers us, a free banana or 2 free bananas or something on our, for one of the gifts. But, oh well, beggars can't be choosers, so I just appreciated it. I took advantage of this a lot, so I drank a lot more soda this month than I probably have in a long time. Anyway, I hope you guys got some use out of that. Hey, and speaking of Pilot Flying J, I did want to address the elephant in the room. I'm well aware that there have been some news stories about the Pilot CEO who got busted for scamming a bunch of truckers for fuel rebates. He finally got sentenced. I think he got 12 years. Well, like I say, I realize you might have something personally against them, and I get that. I just don't tend to hold a grudge that much. I mean, I know it ripped off truckers, but that guy is gone now. And, well, take it like for instance, Warren Buffett, famous investor, he invested in Pilot right after that happened. So he saw something, and it's common knowledge that usually not just trucking companies, but all kinds of companies are better right after they get caught doing something truly, truly bad, because, everybody's watching them. They're under great scrutiny. So if a company's ever going to, probably as good as they're ever going to be is right after they screw up really, really bad. And we got to remember that this is what, I don't know if it was one guy's actions, but it was a small group of people at the very most. It wasn't like the entire corporation. Not everybody who worked at Pilot Flying J knew what was going on. So I just don't think we can hold a grudge against the entire corporation for the actions of just a few individuals. I don't know. That's just me. But anyway. Hey, let's hit some of the social media stuff right up front. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Todd McCann over there. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. You can join the Trucker Dump Slack group or the iTrucker Slack group. We've had some new members in there. Brandon, Trevor, who goes by Kool-Aid, and Mark all joined the iTruckers Slack group. And Trevor and Mark also joined the Trucker Dump group while they were at it. So that's really cool. We just have a blast over there. Like I said, you really should join those groups, one or the other. First, the Trucker Dump Slack group. Obviously, if you want to be a part of that, just email me at truckerdump@gmail.com. Now, there has been a slight change with the iTruckers Slack group. Trucker Bob, he's going through some cancer issues right now. He didn't really want to have to deal with the Slack group that much. He's still in there, but he didn't want to administrate it and be the owner of it anymore. So he passed the ownership to me, and I named Shannon Holden, as the administrator in there, because he's in there a lot. And we've had to change the email address for that. So if you want to become a member of the iTruckers group, which is a bunch of Apple-loving truck drivers who love their iPhones and their Macs and their iPads and everything, like I say, there's a new email address. And that email address is, you ready for it? theitruckers.com. Now, I'm assuming if you like Apple stuff, you know how iTruckers is spelled. All right. Anyway, we're really enjoying those new guys in there. Brandon, Trevor, Mark. Appreciate y'all joining. And they're really jumping in and having a good time in there. So join us. And Trevor actually came from the Trucker Dump Facebook group, which you can find by searching on Facebook for Trucker Dump Podcast. Don't search Trucker Dump. You'll see a bunch of nasty toilets. Anyway, yeah, he came from over there. It's still not all that active over there on Facebook, probably because I'm not that active on Facebook. But I think Trevor learned when you jump over to the Slack group, it's pretty darn active. But hey, if you're a Facebook person, I swear I'm trying to get better at it. I just don't know what to do with Facebook. If you got suggestions for it, let me know. And if you've got stuff to post, please consider doing it in the Trucker Dump Facebook group. All right, enough of that kind of stuff. Let's get on with some news. You know what? There's one major problem with having a podcast that only comes out once per month. By the time you get to the news, it's pretty darn old. As a matter of fact, what I'm talking about here is, of course, Burt Reynolds died on September the 6th. Of course, he was the star of Smokey and the Bandit. Man, what an awesome movie that was. I just went back recently and watched it again. Amazon Prime was offering it for free because of, to honor him. And I went back and watched it again. Still a very funny movie. Wasn't quite as funny as I remember it being, but maybe that's because the comedic movies nowadays are so over the top, that this was more subtle, but it's still great. You just can't go wrong with Jackie Gleason. He's so hilarious. But anyway, here's a little bit of trivia for you. Did you know, of course, this movie came out in 1977. Did you know that it was the second highest grossing movie of 1977? Of course, the first was the original Star Wars. Take that in perspective. I mean, wow, Star Wars was huge. Everybody knows that. But Smokey and the Bandit, I mean, it was huge. I get that. But I was not expecting it to be second. And now I think about nowadays. How would a trucking movie go over nowadays? I don't think it would, All the trucking movies nowadays they never get much attention. But I just thought that was kind of a neat little bit of trivia there. Another bit of trivia, and I got both these off IMDb, the International Movie Database. Burt Reynolds was supposedly promised a brand new Pontiac Trans Am when the time this movie was over, but only if it was a hit. Only if the movie was a hit. Well, obviously the movie was a hit, and he never got his car. So he was like, well, what's going on? But he didn't want to be one of those stars that was like, hey, give me this thing, give me free stuff. So he waited a while, and finally he contacted Pontiac to find out what was going on about it. And apparently the guy who promised him that did not work there anymore. So he had retired. So the new guy actually refused to give him his car. Can you believe that? And supposedly, the Trans Am sales took off out the roof, which is not surprising because whoever drove this car in this movie is phenomenal. What a great driver he was. It was fun to watch that car spinning around everywhere. Man, kind of sad to you look at a classic car like that now and they're just thrashing it, I guess they went through three of those Trans Ams throughout the course of the movie. But there's three things I learned from watching this movie. The first thing I learned is that back in the 70s, you could totally run the cops off the road and there were no repercussions whatsoever. It happened numerous times in this movie. A couple times they even, smashed into him and ran him off the road. And no problem. They just kept on driving. Yeah. It's pretty funny. The second thing I learned was that people were a lot friendlier on the CB back then. I mean, everybody was so friendly and helpful, and not once did I hear anybody say, I ain't got no panties on. And the last thing I learned was that bell bottoms, they look funny no matter what. But you know what? They look even weirder when you're putting them with Western attire. I guess I just didn't remember what that looked like back in the day, but that just looks weird for a guy to be wearing a cowboy hat, a Western shirt, and bell bottoms. But hey, I guess that was the style. And for the record, Sally Field made him look pretty darn good. So anyway, a shout out to Burt Reynolds for making the best trucking movie of all time. We appreciate it. All right, let's get some administrative stuff out of the way. Recalls. Why does there always seem to be a recall every time we do a podcast? Well, maybe it's because I only do once per month. If I did one every week, maybe there wouldn't be recalls every week. Anyway, what we got going on here, the first one is 4,000 Freightliner trucks affected by two separate recalls. Found this on overdriveonline.com. Check out the link in the show notes. The first one is for brake caliper mounting bolts that didn't get tightened quite right. You might want to get that checked out because brakes are kind of important, The second one is specifically for 2018-2019 Freightliner Cascadias. It's only for 116 models, apparently. 116 trucks. But it says the pitman arms may crack and fracture over time, which could cause a loss of steering control. And, I'm really glad they added that part about the loss of steering control because I have no idea what a pitman arm is. So I'm sure you guys know that. If you've listened to the podcast, I have the mechanical aptitude of a squirrel, so, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, for information on these particular recalls, check out the link in the show notes. Both of those will be in there. But, Freightliner is not alone. They've got Kenworth has got 11,000 tractors going to be recalled for an engine harness thing. And what this is they say some of these ISX 15 engines have been manufactured without check engine light and stop engine light circuits, which basically doesn't warn you if there's anything wrong with your motor. That's not good, right? I mean, if you're really low on, if your engine's getting super hot and it's about to blow up because you're low on oil or something, I think I would want to know that. I think I would want it to warn me to shut things down. Anyway, check out the link in the show notes to this one too, and go get that fixed. You don't want to blow up your truck, do you? Anyway. All right, now what Trucker Dump podcast would be complete without talking just a little bit about autonomous trucks, right? Well, there's an article I found on Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. I'll put a link in the show notes to this. It's called I-5 in Washington, Oregon, best route to deploy self-driving semis. Okay. So here's what they're saying. They're naming that Interstate 5 through Washington and Oregon is the best place to test these things. Runners up are I-95 from Jacksonville, Florida to Miami. I-75 from Valdosta, Georgia to Miami. Okay, I get that. And I-85 from northern Georgia to Greensboro, North Carolina. But here's the last one that was kind of shocking to me, honestly. They named I-70 from Utah to Kansas as part of this being the best place to test them. Okay, wait a second here. I mean, I get Kansas. I get that. I get Colorado all the way up to Denver from Kansas. But once you start hitting the mountains, I'm not sure I would want to be testing these autonomous vehicles up in the mountains, especially since you can only do it part of the year, right? I mean, you would never try to do that in the winter. That's nuts. So much of Colorado is just hills and curves and, oh, it's just not good. I can't imagine trying to test one there. And a lot of Utah isn't much better. But anyway, they said this study was done by a company called INRIX, which I've never heard of before. They're saying they judged it on 4 criteria. First, how much freight does the corridor carry? Second, they say the highway is less congested than several other freeways, which, okay, I don't know. Jacksonville, Florida to Miami on 95 seems pretty darn busy, you know? I don't know. Anyway, the third is that the corridor is long. And I guess that's good for, these self-guided trucks. And finally, for the fourth criteria, they named I-5 because they said it has a lot of slowdowns on it. And they think autonomous trucks would be valuable because they look out further ahead. I don't know if they actually do look out further ahead than a professional truck driver who knows what he's doing, but they say they do. So I guess we'll see. So anyway, I just thought this was kind of an interesting article and a little baffling about I-70. So anyway, share your thoughts on that. Where would you like to see autonomous trucks checked? I'm personally thinking maybe like I-80 Nebraska, I-70 Kansas. Okay, those sound all right. And we've got one last story on automation. Did you see this Volvo truck? Wow. OverdriveOnline.com. Volvo trucks developing autonomous electric concept tractor trailer. This thing, well, it doesn't look like any tractor trailer you've seen before. It kind of looks like a sports car that's shoved underneath the front end of a trailer. They showed it operating. It runs on batteries, everything. It looks really cool. But here's a question. Who hooks up those air hoses? Who raises the landing gear? Are they going to make those automatic too, or do they got some poor schmuck that's on one end of the line haul or the other end just disconnecting trailers? Is that the way they're going to do it? I don't know. It just looks a little weird. I think it would freak people out if they saw it going down the road without a driver in it. And as Shannon pointed out, when I pointed this article out, I think it was on Facebook, I pointed it out. And he said, it's not very aerodynamic. It's like, just like I said, the sports car crammed underneath there. And then there's like the whole front of the reefer unit. If you look at the picture in the show, click on the link in the show notes, check out the picture. It's basically just the front of the trailer is just out there in the wind. There's no aerodynamic stuff in front of him. I'm sure Volvo will fix this. They'll probably put some kind of big, huge angled fairing on the front of it eventually. But right now, it looks pretty cool, but I just don't know. And the whole backing thing, they keep talking about, autonomous trucks are going to take our jobs and everything. Well, I have yet to see a video of one of these things backing correctly. I've read some things saying they can do it, but I've never seen a video of it. If you have, please email me that link. I'd love to see that. truckerdump@gmail.com. Anyway, check out this link if you want to see this funky new Volvo autonomous vehicle. All right, let's move on to another self-driving truck article. This is on the truckersreport.com. This one caught my eye for sure, and you'll see why. It says, self-driving trucks may replace 300,000 truckers, but it'll be fun. What? Fun? Where are they getting this? Oh, well, apparently this quote came from a guy named Brian Fieldcow. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Sorry if I am. He's the CEO of Jetco Delivery. And he says that autonomous driving technology is actually going to attract more drivers into the business. And here's his quote. He says, the driver assist technology, automatic braking, roll stability, speed, and space management, the ergonomics, the comfort that's coming into new trucks are all going to make truck driving fun again. What? Fun again? How is not putting your hands on the wheel, not shifting, not paying attention, how is that making truck driving fun again? I really don't get this. Anyway, hey, Brian, if you listen to the show, write in and tell me why you think it's going to be fun, because I can't imagine any truck driver is thinking it's going to be fun to have his job replaced. I'm just saying. Anyway, they are saying that it's going to happen in like 25 years. So pretty much all of us driving right now really don't have to worry about it. We'll be dead by then. If the autonomous trucks don't kill us first. Hey, now here's some really good news for some diabetic drivers, which just happens to be the name of the article on the truckersreport.com link in the show notes. Basically, I'm not going to get into all this because I know all of you don't have diabetes, but they have lifted the exemption that you have to file for diabetes under certain conditions. You know, you have to get signed off with your doctor for certain forms and everything. You have to meet a certain criteria, but at least you're not having to apply for an exemption every single year all the time. And, you know, we can get some good drivers out here. Just because you got diabetes doesn't mean you can't drive, right? I'm assuming there's a lot of you out here. Anyway, that's really cool. I'm glad for all you guys with diabetes. And gals, by the way. I know it seems like it's mostly guys, but I guess it's gals too. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV. Hey, speaking of people with health issues, have you checked out the Citadel Escort Mobile Emergency Fob from Citadel Fleet Safety? Well, you should. Go to citadelfleet.com to learn more, or call them at 800-269-5905. So hey, let's say you got a health issue, like we talked about, diabetes. Maybe strokes are what torment you, or a kidney stone. God knows I've had that and it hurts like the dickens. Or maybe you're just not as young and spry as you used to be and you fall down more often. This is where the Escort device can really save your butt. You know, I'm a tech guy. I love my iPhone. And I'd like to think it's glued to my hand, but I'm shocked at how many times I'm outside the truck and I actually don't have it with me. I remember one such instance during an ice storm. My company shuts me down during bad weather, and so I was stuck at a Lowe's department store overnight. Well, luckily there was a Walmart next door, so when I had to go to the bathroom, I just got out to walk across there. Well, I stepped out onto the parking lot and went to step over a curb, and as soon as I put my foot down, whoosh, man, my feet went right out from underneath me, and I landed right on the curb on the small of my back. It basically bent me in half. I laid there for quite some time in excruciating pain. I knew I could get up, but what if I couldn't? The way I was parked, I landed right between my truck and the building. How long would it have been before somebody actually saw me? It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was freezing outside, and I just had a light jacket on because I was just going to run across the street. This is exactly the type of situation where I wish I had something hanging around my neck. And that's exactly what the Escort is. It's a little key fob sized device that you hang around your neck on a lanyard. You can hook it to your belt clip, or you can attach it to a strap on your wrist like a watch. That way it's always with you. All you have to do is hold down the button on the device for just a couple of seconds, and one of Citadel's emergency advisors is going to answer the phone to find out what's wrong. If you can't talk, they're going to send all kinds of emergency dispatch because they don't know what's happened to you. But if you just tell them, hey, I stupidly stepped out of the truck and I busted my back on a curb and I'm laying here like a seesaw, well, you know, they know to send an ambulance or whoever can get to me first because it is freezing outside. And you know, you don't have to worry about the cold. The Escort is built super rugged, so you don't have to worry about the cold. You don't have to worry about water. Well, as long as you don't throw it in the toilet and leave it there for 30 minutes. You know, you can fish it out. It has some waterproofing. It can handle any temperature you throw at it, providing you're not visiting Satan in hell. And it's just a really rugged device. It's made for a trucker's rough lifestyle and smacking it all over the place. It's got GPS on it too, so if you don't know exactly where you're at, well, the Citadel advisor will know where you're at. and they can relay that information to emergency services. But it's not just for health scares. The Escort is also designed for personal protection. Say you're walking across the parking lot and you see some weird-looking character walking towards you and you're a little freaked out. Well, press the button. They don't mind if you, take a little precautionary action there. If you start screaming, they're going to call the cops. I should mention this is a two-way radio, too, so it's hands-free, which is perfect when you're trying to run away from someone or fight them off. The device comes ready to use right out of the box. Just open it up and it's ready to go. I never quite know if I'm doing justice to how awesome the Escort device is. So why don't you go over and watch some videos over there? If you like what you see, take advantage of the Trucker Dump special. Normally, the Escort is $29 per month, but because you're a Trucker Dump listener, you get it for $22 a month, and that's for as long as you own the device. There is no upfront fee for the hardware. Cool, huh? So how do you take advantage of that discount? Well, go to citadelfleet.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see Customer Login. Click on that. Then click on the Trucker Dump logo and enter Trucker Dump. All lowercase, all one word. That'll give you your discount. And remember, you can always call. The phone number is 800-269-5905. And tell them you heard about it on the Trucker Dump podcast. Thanks to Citadel Fleet Safety for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump and for giving us an awesome discount. Hey, did you happen to make it down to the Great American Trucking Show in Dallas this year? I think it was in August. I made it last year, but I did not make it down there this year. I wanted to go. I just didn't plan very well, to be honest with you. It kind of snuck up on me. I'm hoping to make it to Matt's next year, too, out in Kentucky. Anyway, I've actually been considering trying to get some other trucking podcasters together to rent a booth out there and just, have a big sign that says, "What is a podcast? Ask us," and then we can all just tell people what a podcast is and promote our podcast. But I haven't gotten much interest in it so far, probably because those booths are kind of expensive and I don't even know if I can afford it myself. And as, Buck from the Trucking Podcast said, well, if I wanted to spread the word, I could just go there for free and walk around and pass out, information and talk to people and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of a good point, and us trucking podcasters are not made of money, as most of us are. Well, I don't know anyone who's doing it for their full-time job. Anyway, GATS, what am I talking about GATS for? Well, apparently this year they had a listening session and the big man himself, Ray Martinez, was there. I saw some pictures of this and it looks like it was deserted. I kind of really wish I was down there, cause, when I had a chance to have a say so, they were listening and, anyway, I did do what I was supposed to do. I went to the website and did my comments. So basically I'm going to put a link in the show notes to an article on overdriveonline.com. It's got a really long, title to it, but it's basically a bunch of, comments that were given at the GATS show, and they're reporting on that. So you should go over here, read this article, check it out, link in the show notes, and then, they'll give you an idea of what you might want to say when you go to the FMCSA's actual website to enter your own comments. Because, as I have in another story, link in the show notes, there is they've had 2,700 comments already over there on this hours of service reform, and they have decided to extend the comment period. So if you have not made it over there, they had planned to end the public comment period on September 24th, but they're extending it to October 10th. So listen, you really need to get over there. Like I say, go over there and read that overdriveonline.com. Look at some of the issues and some of the answers that were given. It'll give you an idea maybe what you want to say about it. They talk about extending the 14-hour rule. They talk about dropping the 30-minute break. They talk about split sleeper berth and all the side effects that can come from that. From, great, we got more flexibility, but aren't the shippers, receivers, and our trucking companies going to try to take advantage of that when they need to have something delivered and we haven't had sufficient sleep? There's just so many questions up in the air, so have a look at this article and then get your butt over there and get your comments in. They're asking for it. Quite honestly, it's really hard to believe that they've only got a little over 2,700 comments at the time of the writing of this article. And that's, there's 3.5 million CDL holders in the U.S. What the heck? They're asking for your comments. All I have to say is that if you don't comment about this, I don't want to hear any of you bitching about what the rules come out to be at the end. It's kind of like voting, for the president. You got no right to complain about the president if you didn't vote. If you voted, even if your guy lost or even if he won, you used to have a right to complain. Anyway, get over there and do that. There's a link in the show notes to the commenting page over at the FMCSA. All right, what's next? I'm sure you've heard of all the booting issues that's going on. This is, the truck booting that's happening in the Walmart parking lots. Well, I guess it's happening more and more and more. And if you're unaware of what's happening, truckers are parking in Walmart parking lots that have no truck parking sign. As most of us current drivers know, there's lots of Walmarts that have no truck parking signs, but they do allow you to park there if you need to. But they're changing that. For a while, I think it kind of all started, well, it didn't start, but part of the problem with Walmart, is like in Illinois, the town actually fined Walmart because they weren't enforcing their no truck parking rules. And that's not, quite honestly, a lot of time this is not being mean. I used to have a friend who used to work for Walmart on the construction department. He was a construction supervisor, and he said a lot of times in these towns they have certain asphalt or concrete requirements, and for the front of the store, it's not designed to accept the weight of a semi truck. So a lot of times they're not being mean, but actually they're being nice when they let us park there, even though there are no truck parking signs there. But anyway, this booting is kind of, is just taken one step further, where I guess Walmart is hiring these booting companies to come in and boot your truck. They can either put a boot on the wheel or they can put one across your windshield. There's different styles of them, and they can charge anywhere from, $75 to $500. I think I saw one time that was like $1,000. They're trying to get this, and they want that money now. There's a person there to collect the money from the trucker as soon as he realizes what's going on, and they'll take it off if you're willing to pay it. It's basically extortion. I mean, I know maybe you shouldn't be parked in a no parking zone, but it's basically extortion. There's even a quote in this article on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes, that one of the kids that was out there, doing all this, putting the booting on there for his boss, his quote, he says, "We can't knock hard. My boss told us not to anymore." So basically, instead of just knocking real hard and waking the trucker up and say, you got to move, which now the new PC rules actually allow you to move legally. No, instead they're just lightly knocking so they can get the money out of you. It's really disturbing. So basically the advice is just, if you're going to park at a Walmart or any other like department store or any other grocery store or anything like that, and then there's no truck parking signs there, make sure you go in and get permission from the manager. And here's something to think about too. I've done this before, and I've gotten permission from a manager, and I parked out front and didn't think anything about it. Well, you know what? I'm going to be parked for 10 hours. What's the chances that manager is going to be there in 10 hours? No, he's probably not going to be there. So, if somebody comes up and tries to run you off and you say, well, that manager told me I can park here. Well, how do you prove that? I guess you need to get their name. If you can get it in writing, that would be great. It's just a mess. So just make sure you get permission if you're going to try to do this. And quite honestly, I just try not to park in Walmart parking lots if I don't absolutely have to. Sure, it's nice. You got food all night and you got, access to restrooms and everything, but I use it that only in a last resort dire emergency, where I've got no place else to park. Well, I take that back. I'd rather park at a Walmart than I would like a exit ramp or something like that. But, just try to limit it and make sure you get permission when you do. Anyway, link to this article in the show notes. It's on overdriveonline.com. Hey, I'm going to make this next story short and sweet. This is on overdriveonline.com again. It's called 3 Truckers Busted Smuggling Illegal Immigrants Across the U.S.-Mexico Border. Okay, let's make this short and sweet. Don't do this. This is wrong. Don't do this. Maybe someone approaches you with a big sum of money and you're thinking, I won't get caught this one time. Well, you know what? You might get caught. You might get by with it, but we're truckers. We don't have the best of luck. So you're probably going to get caught. And when you do, you're going to go to jail for endangering lives. It's just not worth it. I trust that anyone listening to this podcast is cool enough that you're not going to do this. But apparently there are still people who do this smuggling. So uncool. Don't do it. Dang, what's wrong with people? Hey, another subject we've been hitting a lot lately is dash cams. There's an article over on overdriveonline.com. NTSB touts the benefits of driver road-facing dash cams. All right. Well, as you well know, the NTSB is the National Transportation Safety Board. And basically this article is just going and pointing out all the great things about the dash cam. And mainly what their point is that you can prove that it was not your fault. As a truck driver, if somebody's doing something stupid around you or whatever, you can show that, hey, it's not my fault that we had this accident. Okay. Well, here's my issue with this. I think I've spoken of this many, many times, but I'm going to speak of it again. Maybe I haven't made myself clear because, actually there's a podcast you should go listen to. The Payroll podcast is, from the people at Truck Driver Power. JT Peters is the host over there. He's also the CEO of that company. And they recently did an episode on dash cams. They did an interview with Ben Hillman. He's the head of marketing at SureCam at surecam.com. And they had a pretty good conversation. And actually, JT and the guys asked me about, some questions to ask because they wanted to make sure they got both sides of the story. And they knew I wasn't a huge fan of the dash cams. So it was, like I said, it was a good episode, but once again, they kept stressing the fact that you can prove that you're not at fault. Okay, that's great. If you can prove that the person was doing something stupid around you and it wasn't really your fault, that's one thing. But it's an entirely different other thing whether the event is non-preventable or preventable. That's what we really get nailed with as truckers. I mean, that's the way I understand it, is that they're really looking at, could we have avoided this accident? And as I've said before, I'm sure these dash cams, okay, maybe it shows that guy brake checked in front of you, but maybe it shows that he brake checked in front of you 3 other times before you missed him, and you didn't pull over to the side of the road to get away from him, or you didn't take the exit ramp. You just kept right on his butt and just got as close to him as you could when he brake checked to try to scare him. Maybe that's what it shows. Maybe, like I say, maybe you're in LA traffic and it shows that you're not following 4 to 7 seconds behind the next vehicle behind you, because it's literally impossible to do that in heavy traffic. But a lawyer's going to pick that apart and they're going to say, nope, see, he's tailgating. This was his fault. It shows a pattern of reckless driving. And it's, say if he was actually following at 4 to 7 seconds, he wouldn't have hit him. So therefore it is a preventable accident. Okay. Maybe they'll still say it wasn't my fault, but I'm more worried about preventable than I am fault. Maybe I'm wrong in that. If I am, somebody straighten me out. Write me in. Tell me. truckerdump@gmail.com. Write me an email and tell me why I'm wrong about this. Anyway, do go over and check out that podcast. It's called the Payload Podcast. And by the way, if you're looking for that, it's kind of hard to find because there is another podcast called Payroll Podcast that is about the Overwatch video game. So I will put a link in the show notes. I don't actually have it yet, but I'm going to get it from JT, and I will have a link in the show notes by the time this episode is aired. And check that out. It's a neat new podcast. They've got about 5 or 6 episodes over there. And JT always asks good questions, and he always has really intelligent people on the show, which is evidenced by the fact that I was the first guest. Okay, maybe that wasn't such a good choice on their part. Oh, anyway, let's move on. Hey, how would you like to take a survey? Well, nobody really likes to take surveys unless there's something in it for us, right? Well, there kind of is something in it for us on this one. This is from the ATRI, which stands for American Transportation Research Institute. And if you go to the link in the show notes, I can actually get you to the specific page. Let's see. Can I? I don't think I can. I think I have to send you there. Oh, I don't know. I'll put a couple links in the show notes and we'll get you there. Anyway, what this thing is, it's a survey about how detention time impacts safety, productivity, and compliance. And I took this. It didn't take that long. They asked you a bunch of questions about, how many times in the last year you've been delayed, how long those delays are, what type of delays, what's causing the delays, different stuff like that. So I would suggest going on over there. We all know that one of the biggest problems in the trucking industry is the detention at these shippers. We wouldn't have a lot of these hours of service issues if we didn't get held up at customers, at shippers and receivers. So if we can get this problem fixed and, taking a short survey can kind of help explain to them what the problems are, why not do it? I don't know how many responses they've got, but it should be a lot because every trucker has a problem with this. So get your butt over there and do it. Like I say, there'll be a couple links in the show notes. I think I've got the right link up here now. It'll be a research.net link, but there will also be one to the ATRI website. And if you click on that one, there is a little survey button in the upper left-hand corner of the page. Hey, speaking of surveys, TruckerPath did their own survey recently. Found this one on truckersreport.com. The article is called Survey, Parking is Number One Stress for Drivers Made Worse by ELDs. Well, that sounds about right, doesn't it? Apparently the study took place, a survey of 5,400 truck drivers, and they found that 85% listed parking as the number one stressor. They followed it up with ELD and hours of service issues at 63%, shippers at 38%, other truckers at 33%, brokers at 16%, and dispatchers at 11%. Well, the one thing that pops out of me at that other truckers is 33%. This should not be, folks. Why are we causing each other stress? We're all truck drivers. We should all be trying to help each other out of here, not causing other people stress. What's wrong with us? Good Lord, people, the golden rule. That's all you got to do. How would you want to be treated? Treat other people that way. It's really not that hard. Wow. Anyway, you can check out this link in the show notes. And I'm just curious if you agree with that. Is parking the number one stressor? I guess I could see that. But then again, this is done by TruckerPath, and they have a parking app. That's a big feature of their app. So I don't know. I would not say they would skew this on purpose. I'm not going to go that far. Just sometimes you have to look at the source of where things are coming from. But I could totally believe that parking gets rated as the top issue. Could you? I don't know. Write in and tell me. truckerdump@gmail.com. Hey, this next article I found on overdriveonline.com called Modest Proposal Outlining a Federal Graduated CDL. And I have never heard this issue. And quite frankly, this is probably the most interesting article I found all month. This really made me think. What the general consensus here is, this was written by Clifford Peterson. I don't know if he's a staff guy over there or if he's just a trucker or what he is. I didn't read it that closely, to be honest with you, but I was looking at some of the finer points of this thing, and like he was saying, if we were actually like federal employees, that we would be, like we could have different stages, he says like we'd have an apprenticeship level, and you might call it CDL 1A, and then CDL 2B would be once you get 2 years in, and once you get a third year, you can add hazmat and you can get paid more. And 40. That's the way I understand government jobs work, is you kind of get a level. It's kind of like the military in a way. How you build up to a certain level and you get more pay for each level that you're up. But he states that this would be great because whether you go from one job to another, one trucking company to another trucking company, you'd still be paid by a federal type wage. I'm not sure I totally understand this, to be honest with you, but like you take all of your experience with you, which you do now, you take it all with you, but say, like you had a 401k and you worked at this company for 10 years and then you decided to switch companies. Well, that 401k comes to a stop. at this company. I mean, you can roll it over into an IRA, but you can't really just continue it. Well, wouldn't it be nice if all of this was under one big bubble, basically, you know, and your pension went with you everywhere you went and stuff like that? It's just a very interesting article and an interesting idea. And I would ask that you might want to go over here and check this out, because I'm sure, I'm 100% positive I didn't explain it very well. But anyway, he just gives a scenario of how this could all work, and it's kind of interesting. So again, check that out. Link in the show notes. It's on overdriveonline.com. Hey, I'm sure y'all heard of the Highway Hero program from Goodyear. Well, check out the link at overdriveonline.com. The nominations are up again. So if you know somebody who has saved somebody or helped out in an accident or something, you can nominate them. And they're accepting nominations through November 29th, and they will announce the winner let's see, they'll announce the winner. Where will they announce the winner? I don't know. It doesn't really say here, I don't think. But anyway, the three finalists will receive expense-paid trips to the 2019 Mid-American Trucking Show in Louisville. And here's the criteria that you're looking for. You're looking for someone who is a full-time truck driver. They have to reside in the U.S. or Canada. The heroic incident must have occurred in the U.S. or Canada. The nominee's truck must have 12 wheels or more when the incident occurred. The nominee must have been on the job or on the way to or from work when the incident occurred. And the incident must have taken place between November 16th of 2017 and November 16th of 2018. So if you know anybody that did a really good job helping someone out during a wreck or whatever the case may be, you know, maybe helping somebody who was trying to commit suicide off a bridge or something like that. If you know somebody like that, nominate them. I've done nothing worthwhile this year, so don't put my name in there. Anyway, check that out. Link in the show notes. Again, you can turn these drivers' names in through November 29th. You know, this next thing I kind of have an issue with, but I thought I would talk about it since, you know, it is, well, it's something you can do if you want to do it. Anyway, this is on overdriveonline.com. Nominations open for Best Fleets to Drive For contest. This is the Truckload Carriers Association, where you can submit your company for the best place to drive. I'll put a link in the show notes to that actual place you can vote or you can nominate. But here's the thing. I just don't get this. Anytime I see a list that's like best fleets to drive for or, you know, top fleets or whatever, I'm thinking, by whose standard? I mean, maybe they've got a list of criteria that I'm not aware of, but I mean, they are taking nominations from the average driver. If they're just happy with their company, they can, you know, put their company's name in the hat for, you know, best places to drive. But best place to drive is so subjective. I mean, one company is not right for everybody. Just because one guy loves a company does not mean it's great for everybody else. You know, like the home time at my company stinks, but I like pretty much everything else about them. You know, granted, you might say home time is the most important thing to truckers, and you're right, but also money is very important. So, you know, if I can make a little bit of extra money because I don't quite have as much time as the next guy, then, you know, hey, that's my choice. That's why I'm with the carrier that I'm with. And, you know, maybe somebody else has a different opinion because they like living right close to their terminal. Maybe they're, you know, it's only a few miles away from their house, and they just love that fact that they don't have to drive very far when they get home. Maybe it's because they get home every night is why they like their company the best. But does that mean it's the best for an over-the-road driver? You know, it's so subjective. I just don't get these lists. So when you see them, take them with a grain of salt. It might be a good place to start. You know, if you're looking for a new job, you might check down the list and, well, you should actually, you know, download How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job and get the checklist out of there. And you can, you know, call all these places up and ask all those questions and get an idea who the best one to work for. Maybe you'll find a great company out of there. You know, hey, if there's 10 or 20 or whatever, hey, that's a good place to start, I guess. But I would not judge it by what some driver says about it. I just wouldn't. That's just me. Anyway, link in the show notes if you're interested in submitting your company or finding a new company to drive for. And last, I like to save a fun little story for the end. And this one is great because I just love it when justice is served. Truckersreport.com, link in the show notes. Carrier owner fakes kidnapping to avoid paying truckers $9,000. Really? Yes, really. Wow. Apparently, this woman named Maria Gonzalez, she's a 32-year-old. She claims she was driving home when she stopped because there was two dogs in the street, and then she was approached by two men, and they took her. They kidnapped her and they stole her money. Well, apparently that money was supposed to go to truck drivers, but she had actually stolen it herself, so she had to make up a story. Well, the Fresno police read right through it. They figured it out pretty darn quick what was going on, and they busted her. So good for that. How dare you try to rip truckers out of money? Look at what happened to the pilot guy. Let's hope she serves some time for this too. That'll teach her. Anyway, don't you love it when justice is served? Whew. Well, that was a lot of news. Let's see. According to my figures, I got 38 minutes of news here. Let me run something by you. I've been going over this in my head and trying to think. I've been wondering if this news section is too long, and I know that's really because, I only put out a podcast once a month, like I said earlier. But I have been wondering if maybe I should branch the news off into its own separate podcast and maybe make it like a weekly or a bi-weekly something like that. So it would be a shorter episode. If it was every week, it might only be, 10 minutes or something like that. But it would just be just the news. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Man, he can't even kick out one podcast per month. How's he think he's going to do a weekly one or a bi-weekly one? Well, I got to tell you, the hard part about this podcast is putting together the main topic and, thinking that all through and having the time to write that all out. And I'm a slow writer as is, but the news is different. It's already there for me. It comes to me through my email. I choose the stories I want to do, and then I just talk about them off the top of my head. I don't have to do a lot of research on that. So I really think I might be able to do one once a week or every 2 weeks, especially since it's a shorter episode. And typically those are, surprisingly enough, they're easier to edit than my main topic. I don't know why that always is, but I always have a harder time editing my writing. Anyway, would anybody be interested in that? I don't know. Be a little bit more work on my part, but maybe it wouldn't have this podcast quite so long, which I know most of you don't care. You want the longer podcasts, but I just wondered if you might want to kind of split it up a little bit. That way, people who just want to get, the feedback section and the Trucker Grub and the main topic can, download the Trucker Dump podcast, and then I could call this other one, the Trucking News podcast or something like that. I don't know. Just a thought. Why don't you write in and let me know about that? truckerdump@gmail.com. Just kind of toying with that in my head. Oh, and hey, I'm also working on a survey about this kind of stuff because I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So be prepared for me to ask you to do a survey in the future. There might even be a prize attached to it. Who knows? Anyway, let's get on with some Trucker Grub. What you say?
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Well, like I said, we got a unique one. You've heard from Driver Dave quite a few times. He writes in a lot, but I finally badgered him into doing some audio. And, well, I'll just let it speak for itself. Take it away, Dave.
Okay, Todd, with 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's, and stay out of my way. Okay, you want audio? You got audio.
I want audio.
I did it one piece at a time,
and
it didn't cost me a dime. You know it's me when I come through your town. I'm gonna ride around in style. I'm gonna drive everybody wild, 'cause I have the only one there is around.
Little Johnny Cash. Nice.
Yeah, okay, I still got my day job. I'm not gonna give that up. Yeah, I should probably introduce myself. This is Driver Dave. And, okay, let's see now. Food. Okay, I do, at the present, I do most of my trucking in Ontario, Canada. And,
You do, eh?
Let's say you're coming through Michigan, you're coming to Canada, and you flip the border at Windsor. There is 129 the south side. It's Ridgetown exit. There's a truck stop there called Daniels, and it's kind of seen better days. Busier than that. There was a CB shop there at one time, but the food's reasonable, and you're going to be have pretty good luck there at getting parking around the back at even late into the evening. If you keep going east from Windsor, you're going from Detroit into Windsor and then down the 401 east. The next one of mention would be at the 538 clicker sticker. That's in Belleville, just east of Toronto. Wallbridge exit, and you get off there and you just take the ramp and you go drive straight off the end of the ramp into the truck stop. As a precautionary note, watch the potholes. Watch the potholes in that place, man. They're bad.
Sounds like experience you had there,
you can
Dave.
snap an axle or an ankle if you're walking around. You don't see them. Anyway, you will always get parking in that place. Always, always, always. The food's pretty good. Last time I was there, the portions are reasonable. And aside from the potholes, and they got showers and all that. Aside from the potholes, the thing that bugs me is you have to pay. If you're going to park there overnight, you got to drive to the back. I go to the fuel bar and pay. I guess it's about $10 Canadian with tax. It's a little bit more than that. You take that permit and you stick it in your window. Tape it onto the window or the side window or whatever, so they can see it, because they'll come around at night and they'll check. And if you don't have it there, then you get a parking ticket. It's rather expensive, I believe. But the deal is you buy that at night, and in the morning you go on and you take that receipt or that thing inside, and you can you're looking at free breakfast up to the value of what you paid.
Well, at least you're getting something for your parking.
So yeah, those are my two places to eat at. As things go along, maybe I'll try and send some recipes and cooking in the truck kind of thing. And I will not give up my day job. Okie dokie. So thanks again. Talk at you later. Have a safe one. Bye-bye.
Same to you, Dave, and thanks for sending in this audio clip. Thanks for buckling to my pressure, finally. Hey, a couple of little clarifications here. The first truck stop he talked about was called Daniels, and it is actually in Beechwood, Ontario, and I had a hard time finding any information on this truck stop. It's not labeled on Google Maps. It's not in Trucker Path. So just follow his directions and you'll find it. It's off exit 21, or not exit 21, highway 21, and whatever exit number he said. I'm not sure. The second truck stop he did not name. That one is actually called 10 Acres Truck Stop, and it is on Trucker Path and fairly easy to find. Again, Dave, thanks for letting us know about these. So, hey, what about you? You got a favorite place to eat? Someplace you can access with a truck, or a close walk from a truck stop, something like that? Send in an audio comment. Right now, the best way to do that is just open up your phone, fire up your voice memo app, record what you got to say, and send it off to truckerdump@gmail.com. And by the way, I am working on getting a phone number put together, so you will be able to just call in and make it a little bit easier to submit audio comments. But for now, still doing it the old-fashioned way. Yes, this is an ad sponsored by me. Well, I'm not paying myself very much, is the problem. Anyway, no, I listen to a lot of podcasting gurus, and they're always saying, hey, it's fine to promote other stuff on your show. It's fine to have sponsors, but don't forget about your own stuff, especially if you sell stuff. Well, I sell stuff, right? Okay, well, first off, let's just talk about the Trucker Dump t-shirts. A couple different designs. You can find those at TeePublic. Probably the best way is just to click the link in the show notes. If you wait until the perfect time, these t-shirts go on sale for like $14. They go on sale for like 3 days for about once a month. So go check those out. I've purchased some myself, and the quality is quite awesome. quite good, and I'm working on some other designs for the future. And of course, there's the books. First off, we got Trucking Life. That is the one that is designed for people new to the industry or people who are considering getting into the industry and they're not sure what the trucking life is all about and whether they should get involved or not. It's a fun book to read, I think, and it comes with a 9.25 hour audiobook, so that comes free. So a lot of drivers listen to that and say they enjoyed it, even if they have been driving for years. They find it entertaining, and it's a nice way to waste a whole shift of driving, right? So anyway, now while Trucking Life was designed with the newbie in mind, it can be enjoyed by experienced drivers. But How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job is really designed for the newbie, whether they're brand new or whether they're just about to get into truck driving and finding their first job. And really what it is just a list of questions that you need to be asking each employer. Now, it's a long list. You don't have to ask every single question, but, you know, the vast majority of times when I've figured out that I did not like something about a particular company, it's not because they didn't tell me, it's because I didn't ask. So if you have a list of questions right in front of you, well, that makes the process a lot easier. And then it's a lot easier to compare company A to company B. And like I said, it comes with a questionnaire, so you can print that off as many times as you want. And hey, I don't want to leave out you experienced drivers, so there's something for you too. Now, you don't need all the explanations of what an inverter is and how mileage pay works and all that stuff like the newbie does. That's all in the book, but you don't need that. So why don't you just get the questionnaire? Sure, yeah, you can make up your own checklist, but it would take you a long time just like it did me. Trust me, this book was not fun to write. It just wasn't. The first one, Trucking Life, that was fun to write, even though it took me forever. The second one, not fun to write. You don't want to do that. So, for those of you who don't need the whole book, I made the questionnaire available for $1.99. Okay, so I know there's some newbie out there right now thinking, screw Todd, I ain't paying for the book when I can just get the questionnaire for $2. Well, you know what? You could do that, but then you're going to call these companies, you're not going to know what you're asking about. And trust me, just get the book, you'll understand how the trucking industry works and why you're asking the questions you're asking. Don't go in clueless. Seriously. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm still trying to figure out where I need to put the link to this questionnaire on the website. So for now, just look in the show notes. Of course, the show notes are also on the blog post. So just go to abouttruckdriving.com. Just search for TD132. Scroll to the bottom and you'll see the podcast show notes and you'll find that link in there. Each of the books is $9.99 and you can get them on Amazon, iBooks, wherever you get your ebooks. You can also get free samples there, or you can get them from my website at abouttruckdriving.com. But of course, the best way to get them is in a combo pack where you can save 25% off. That's $14.98 for both books. And remember, the free audiobook of Trucking Life is included in that too. Now, this offer is only available on my website, so head to abouttruckdriving.com/combo. You can purchase through PayPal and they'll send you right back to my website where you can download any of the format of the book you want. And you'll get a link to the audiobook right there. Well, thank God that's over. You know, I've had people tell me it's okay to promote my stuff on my own show, but I still feel kind of sleazy doing it. Anyway, thanks for listening to me. Hey, let's get on with today's main topic. You know, once again, I fired up the old computer and started typing in here and thought there's no way I'm going to make this into a decent length topic to talk about, but in true fashion, I went 2,700 words, so I should just quit talking to myself about that and trying to say, oh, I'm never going to be able to make this stretch out, because I always do. I know stretching it out isn't always the best, but I do know you guys like to have some decent content, and, you know, sometimes I find that when you talk about a subject, if you talk about it in brief terms, you're not actually addressing all the issues, and not saying that every one of my articles address all the issues, but sometimes when you talk about a subject, it just raises more questions than you had before if, you know, you weren't aware of the issue or whatever. Well, we're all aware of this issue, so I guess let's just get on with it. I called this one, Should We Call Out Bad Truckers? Okay, now the title of this podcast specifically mentions bad truckers because, well, this is a trucking podcast after all, right? But it's really something even non-truckers need to think about. We all see people doing stupid, rude, selfish, or just plain thoughtless things. For you non-truckers, it might be someone cutting in front of you at the grocery store checkout line, or a neighbor who lets a St. Bernard do its squats in your yard. For truckers, it's drivers who take a 30-minute break while sitting beside a fuel pump, or one who pours out a gallon of piss in the parking lot right where another trucker is going to be walking along there soon. So the question is, what should we do about this? Do we ignore it, or do we confront these bad truckers? Okay, now personally, I'm one of the most non-confrontational people you'll ever meet. When the evil overlord, that's my wife and ex-co-driver, is itching for a good argument, she often gets even more frustrated because it's just hard to get a rise out of me. Yet when I encounter another trucker doing something stupid or just plain selfish, I often feel compelled to go straighten him out. A couple months back, my friend and fellow Trucker Dump Slack member Aaron was at one of his company terminals when he noticed that a lease driver had pulled into the fuel bay backwards. He approached the guy to let him know, and this guy immediately got bent out of shape and started trying to pick a fight with him. Now, thankfully, Aaron just walked away. But hey, a couple of months down the road, Aaron ran into Mr. Fisticuffs again, only this time the guy actually tried to recruit him to drive one of his leased trucks. What is this guy, schizophrenic or what? One time he wants to fight him and the next time he wants to hire him. I don't get it. Anyway, almost every day I see someone on Facebook or Twitter talking about some bad trucker sitting in a fuel bay for what appears to be a mandatory 30-minute break. I really hope the FMCSA gets rid of this rule soon. I hate that 30-minute break with a passion. I've spoke about it many, many times on this podcast. Anyway, the two instances I remember the most were at the Loves in Tomsbrook, Virginia, and at the Flying J in Waco, Texas. Both times I was fueling right next to a driver who was sitting in the driver's seat reading. And both times neither was fueling when I pulled up, and they still hadn't budged as I pulled away. But hey, at least there wasn't anyone behind the driver in Virginia. But all the other bays were full. So that means the next driver that pulled in, he's going to be waiting to fuel. That's just uncool. Now the driver in Waco was a totally different story. He was really screwing things up. Trucks were too deep waiting on a fuel bay, and this guy, he just didn't care. This incident actually took place in the afternoon, so there was a ton of parking places available out in the parking lot. I guess this worthless excuse of a trucker felt it was just too inconvenient. Bless his heart. It's times like these that even mild-mannered dudes like myself want to say something. If only I were Clark Kent. He's as mild-mannered of a dude as they get, but if I could just step into my truck, jump into my leotards and take off my glasses, I'd go pick up this guy's rig and walk it over to a parking spot. I might even set it down just a tad bit too hard. Accidentally, of course. But since I don't possess superhuman strength, let alone any leotards, I settled for stopping to look up at him a few times with a look of disgust. Unsurprisingly, he was too busy reading his magazine to notice me. Ultimately, I kept my mouth shut and did my job. All I can say is that he better be glad bad thoughts can't make someone crap their drawers. Dang it, I want those superpowers. Come on. Now, I'm not going to go into detail as to why parking in the fuel bay is so annoying. Truckers already know, but for you non-truckers, you can go check out Trucker Dump episode 107, The Fuel Bay Golden Rule. Suffice it to say, it really gums things up. It's not just the fuel bay, though. I got annoyed another time recently at the Flying J in Albuquerque, New Mexico when I was on a 34-hour break. There I was just sitting in my bunk, looking out the windshield when I saw a Style Line logistics driver stand on his top running board and pour out what appeared to be about a half gallon of piss. He poured it right on the pavement where the next driver is going to step out. And he did it in total view of all the truckers in the vicinity. Now, to make things even more unexcusable, there was a grassy area about 100 feet from the dump site, and a trash can was even closer. Again, my first reaction was to approach him and give him a stern lecture about how disrespectful that is to other drivers. Instead, I waited until he left and walked over to verify it was in fact human whiz. One whiff told me it was. Once verified, I promptly Googled his company and called to report him. Now, I only got a voicemail, so I honestly don't know if anyone ever talked to him about it. I would hope so, though. I mean, I can't imagine any trucking company being happy about one of their drivers doing something like this. it certainly doesn't reflect well on them. But just a few weeks ago, I had yet another incident. I was waiting for the cat scale to clear at the Flying J in Pontoon Beach, Illinois. Now, for any of you drivers familiar with the place, you'll know that if you pull right up behind the driver on the scale, you're effectively blocking the exit path for any drivers trying to leave the fuel area. Now, since I'm such a considerate dude, I was hanging back a bit. Now, just as the trucker was pulling off the scale, another truck comes flying in front of me and drives right onto the scale. Well, there was no stopping me this time. I was mad. I got on the CB, but of course, there was no response. So, I jump out of the truck and I go storming up to the guy who's now standing on his running board talking to the cashier. With my arms outstretched, I go, "Dude, what the heck?" And yes, I said heck, I didn't cuss. It's weird like that. Anyway, he looks at me with utter bewilderment, but I continue, "Dude, I was waiting in line and you just butt right in front of me." He immediately apologized and said he didn't see me. Well, I guess that is possible if you're a bad trucker who isn't paying attention to his surroundings. I will be the first to admit that the less noble side of me wants to correct these people just so I can make them feel like the selfish pigs that they are. Mission accomplished in the case of the cat scale guy. But another part of me wants to scold them simply because it makes me mad. Almost as mad as the evil overlord gets when I leave the hallway light on for no apparent reason, for the third time in 15 minutes. Oops. Again, if making me mad was what he was trying to do, well, it happened. I did feel vindicated after my outburst, even though it didn't make my situation better in the least. But my deeper reason for wanting to correct these bad truckers is that I just want the trucking industry to be a better place to work for everyone. So basically, I want to shame them into doing what's right. We all know trucking companies are already having enough problems keeping their trucks full. A bunch of jerk-faced drivers with me-first attitudes aren't going to help things any. Most of what keeps newcomers away from truck driving is simply being away from home, family, and friends. If it weren't for that, I'm sure these carriers wouldn't have such a hard time keeping some enormous trucker butts in their seats. But for the sake of argument, let's say the trucking companies could figure this out and provide a way for drivers to get home more often. Even then, why would an outsider want to come into an industry where so many drivers are disrespecting their fellow truckers? And even if they are naive enough to enter the industry without knowing what it's truly like, how long do we expect them to stick around if these bad truckers keep making their job more frustrating than it has to be? We already know there's a huge portion of new truckers who don't make it past the 6-month mark. Hey, I got an idea. Let's give them yet another reason to abandon the industry. Wow. Okay, now that we've discussed the satisfaction we sometimes feel after jumping down someone's esophagus, let's ponder whether we should be calling out these bad truckers. Now, despite the fact I did this just a couple of weeks ago myself, I'm thinking I should stop confronting these people. Even though it's very rare when I do lose my cool, I should still get my emotions in check and not confront the driver. Here's the problem. People are freaking crazy nowadays. You just never know how they're going to take your correction and what they're going to do. I'm sure most of you heard about the incident at the Pilot in Walton, Kentucky. There's a link in the show notes to that article if you didn't see it. Well, what happened is one driver cut in front of another truck that was waiting for the next available fuel bay. Now, the offended driver approached the bad trucker and words were exchanged. The bad trucker then whipped out a gun and shot the guy in the arm and then proceeded to turn the gun on himself to commit suicide. And it worked, unfortunately. Now, here's the scary thing. If you change the words fuel pump to cat scale, that could have been me getting shot at. Man, me no likey that. Another such incident took place at the Loves in Jackson, Georgia. This one happened just this year, I think. Apparently, a truck had been sitting in a fuel bay for a really long time. The waiting driver got impatient and approached the other driver. Naturally, an argument ensued, because that's what happens. The waiting driver returned to his truck and brandished a gun. Apparently, though, he was unaware that the other driver was packing too, because at this point, the jerk in the fuel bay opened fire. Now, luckily, the driver survived the shooting and the shooter was released after it was determined to be self-defense. So hey, in this situation, we're dealing with two bad truckers. One was unnecessarily blocking a fuel bay. The other decided that producing a weapon was the answer to the problem. Obviously, both are really bad choices. But would this incident have ever taken place if the waiting driver hadn't approached the fuel bay hog? Nope. All this has led me to the following conclusion. My life is not worth the satisfaction I get from straightening out a bad trucker. Even if I'm only shot in the arm, I'm still out of work for a while. And even if the altercation escalates to blows, what did we solve by pummeling each other? Fighting hurts. But perhaps the biggest reason is that it just doesn't work. Think about this. If a bad trucker is such a self-centered a-hole that they clearly don't care that they're offending, delaying, or inconveniencing everyone else, what makes you think they're going to give a frog's fart about your opinion? They aren't. So does this mean that all us good drivers have to take this crap from bad truckers? No, but we do have to be careful about what we do. When we feel we're not being respected, our natural reactions are to fly off the handle, or at the very least, confront the issue with a bit of an attitude. This is not the smart thing to do. The Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. Now, I know for a fact that this works for initiating a confrontation too, not just an answer. Now, despite my blow up at the scale hopper a while back, I'm usually pretty level-headed. I think I was just pissed off that day in general. I don't honestly remember why I went off on the guy. Anyway, we all get stuck behind drivers who clearly aren't fueling. Just the other day, I was sitting behind a truck at the fuel bay. I could see the guy topping off his tank, so I knew he's almost done. That's why I pulled in behind him. Now, when he finally finished, he stepped back into the truck. I waited for the inevitable brake lights and then a pull-up to let me at the pumps. But nothing happened. I gave him enough time to get situated. Maybe do his logbook, put something away, or change into some driving clothes. But still, there was no movement. So now was the time for action. So how did I handle it? Well, I walked up and tapped on the driver's door. He rolled down the window, and I could see he had a co-driver, and they were having a pretty good laugh about something. His expression changed as soon as he saw me. He looked like he was expecting an attitude, probably because he knew he was doing something wrong. Instead, he got a smile, and I said, "Hey man, you got something going on up here? I'd kind of like to get this fuel bay." He did move up, although I don't think he was all that happy about it. But what could he do to a guy who was smiling and asking nicely? Now, if I had walked up there with a scowl on my face and an attitude, how well do you think that would have gone? Besides, we have to remember sometimes there are legitimate reasons for this. Maybe he's having trouble with his fuel card. Maybe his truck won't start. Or maybe they spilled their coffee all over the place while getting into the truck. Yes, most of the time it's just a selfish jerk who thinks the world revolves around him. For all I know, his head might be so big that it actually caused its own orbit. It works for the sun, after all. But let's say he did cop attitude with me. What then? Well, ideally, I walk away without a word. Sure, it sucks worse than a 12-volt vacuum cleaner to have to swallow your attitude, especially when you know you're right. But remember, if this bad trucker doesn't mind blocking the fuel bay when he could see that I was behind him, he's probably not going to care about my opinion anyway, or anyone else's for that matter. So here's how I've decided I'm going to try to handle these situations in the future. I will always approach nicely. Okay, I probably won't, but I'm going to try. If the guy who butted in front of me at the Catskill clearly didn't see me, which I honestly believe he didn't, he'll apologize and everyone will feel better about the situation. If the jerk in the fuel bay decides to ignore me, I'll back off and try a different fuel bay. But you know what? Then I'm going to go telling him like a third-grade girl who narks on the boy who keeps wiping boogers on her. Seriously. If a driver is clearly taking a break in the fuel bay, go tell the fuel desk. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. There's only a small chance of them doing something about it other than making an announcement over the intercom to be courteous to other drivers and pull up when finished fueling. But it's better than getting a Colt 45 pointed at your face, right? But afterwards, call their company. Obviously, that's only if they're a company driver. If they're owner-operator, you're crap out of luck. But call them and report them. Maybe the bad trucker doesn't care what you or the truck stop cashier has to say, but maybe they'll listen if it's coming from the company that's paying their wages every week. Now, I know some of you macho drivers out there are thinking, I ain't gonna be a narc. That's a wussy's way out. I'll take care of this myself. Well, in the words of another scuzz bucket, Bobby Brown, I guess that's my prerogative. Anyway, it doesn't bother me one iota to be a tattletale. I've reported drivers for refusing to turn down their rap music when I'm trying to sleep, even after I ask nicely. I've reported bad truckers who are driving way too aggressively. And obviously, I've reported drivers who use the truck stop parking lot as their personal porta potty. All these acts, including a whole bunch more we haven't even mentioned in this podcast, are either disrespectful or downright dangerous to others. So call me a narc. Call me a tattletale. Call me a snitch. You can even call me a squealer. Just don't ever call me a bad trucker.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Oker doker, artichoker. Let's get on with some email. First up, we're going to hear from Allie. She actually read Trucker Dump 95, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. And she writes, scariest tailgating experience happened to me not that long ago. I was close to home with family after a 10-hour drive from Montreal. I was going 65 on a 60 road in the rightmost lane at like 1 a.m. when a truck starts to tailgate me. The truck was so close that my entire rear view was just the truck's headlights. I couldn't even check my blind spot to get out of the way. Thankfully, it didn't last too long since the person turned right eventually, but I was honestly trapped by this person and was scared. Man, I hate to hear stories like this, Allie, but I'm glad you emailed me about it. You know, I'm really sorry you had this bad experience with the tailgating trucker. Obviously, you weren't doing anything wrong. I mean, you were going above the posted speed limit and you were in the right lane like you're supposed to be, right? The only thing I can think is that he was either late for an appointment or he was trying to get somewhere before time ran out on his electronic logs. I suppose it is possible that he was just a giant a-hole. But anyway, I'm guessing it was one of the other reasons, especially since you said he turned off eventually. My suspicion's that he was in a rush and needed to turn right soon, and you were in the right-hand lane. You weren't going fast enough for his liking, even though you were going over the speed limit, and so he just tried to motivate you a little bit by getting right up on your butt. Like I say, again, that's no excuse for riding your back like that. That's unacceptable when they get that close. Like I pointed out in my article, when I'm talking about tailgating, I'm talking about like 3 or 4 car lengths, getting up there just enough to make someone nervous. I'm not talking about being, a foot from somebody's bumper. That's uncool and it's very unsafe. So sometimes you do have to wake people up on the road when they're doing stupid things or driving stupid. But clearly you were doing nothing wrong here. So on behalf of all of us truck drivers, I apologize for the a-hole who was riding your butt. Yeah, next up we're going to hear from Tim, and Tim is one of my new favorite people, and you'll see why here in a second. He says, hello, Todd. I'm one of those people who works in a cubicle and stares at a computer screen for 8 hours a day. Been doing this for the last 10 years or so. Anyway, times are a-changing, and so is the way we do business. Thinking about busting out of this cubicle and truck driving might be an option. I've been surfing the World Wide Web, and I ran into your book. I read it, and I believe it will help me make a decision. All this surfing I've been doing, I've been finding that a lot of people don't like over-the-road driving, but there sure are a lot of people doing it. So I figured it's like anything else. It's all about attitude, and you seem to have the right one. Anyway, thanks for the information and safe travels. Who knows, you might see me out there someday. Well, Tim, I hope I do see you, and you can see why Tim's one of my favorite people because he bought my book. Anyway, I offered to help him because, I know that the book didn't answer every single question that a new person can, think of. So, I sent him an email and said, hey, make sure you email me in case you have other questions because, I want to try to help if I can. Anyway, the whole thing about truck driving is, you said that a lot of people don't like it. Well, yeah, there are lots of people who do like it, but some of them don't like the over-the-road aspect of it. I would be one of those. I wouldn't count myself as having a great attitude towards it. I accept the fact that I'm doing it, but I would love to find something more local. Maybe I could get home every weekend, or maybe I could be home every day. But the problem is, the more you're home, typically the less you make. And that's a problem. Like I see local jobs in my hometown that I could do, and I could be home every day, and I could work 9 hours a day or 8 hours a day. And they want to pay me like $10 to $13 an hour. And that's just, I'm sorry, a truck driver's worth that. Worth more than that. Even a brand new trucker straight out of school is worth more than that, in my opinion. So, it is a lot to have to do with attitude, but a lot of people just fall into this and then they kind of get trapped, like That's what happened to me. You know, I got in and I started making decent money, and then I found that I couldn't make better money anywhere else because I don't have a college degree. Well, I have an associate's degree, but I never made a dime with that. Anyway, you know, it's just, I don't know. You just sometimes get trapped in this. If you stay in it, the longer you stay in it, the worse it is. I got to say that, you know, because when you get experience under your belt, you start making more cents per mile or more percentage pay or whatever your company is paying you. You know, it gets harder and harder to leave because all the local jobs, like I say, just don't pay as much. So anyway, any question you got, Tim, give me a shout, truckerdump@gmail.com. I'll be happy to answer your questions for you. Well, I think that actually catches us up on feedback, except for the one I teased you about last week. Remember, last week. There I go again. Last episode. You remember I said I got an email from Anthony, and it was one of the most interesting questions I've ever had, and I really had to think about it. So here is what Anthony wrote. He said, oh, by the way, Anthony is another one of my favorite people, and of course you know why. He says, hi, Todd. I've read Trucking Life with great interest this weekend. Thanks for writing it. I'm considering going to trucking school, but have driven a regular car less than 10 times in my life. Although I've had a driver's license since I was 16, I'm 32 now, I've never had a need to own a car, having lived in a city with great public transit. So his question is, how much experience should I have driving a car before going to trucking school so that I can, A, realistically get a job after trucking school finishes, and B, manage the truck safely? Okay, so you can see why this is a little weird. I had never been asked this before. So I'm going to read verbatim what I wrote back to him because it took me a long time to write this email, honestly. I really had to think this through. And I would be interested to hear what you experienced drivers listening to this would have to say. Am I right about this? Am I wrong? You tell me. Listen closely. I said, hello, Anthony. Wow, I've been asked a lot of questions, but this is a first. Very interesting predicament we have here. First, thanks for reading the book. You rock. And every one of you who have read the book, you rock. And if you want to rock, order the book. It's pretty easy, really. Anyway, find that at abouttruckdriving.com. By the way, don't forget about my combo deal. It's 25% off. For both books. Okay, sorry. Anthony, I say, next, I don't believe the trucking companies have any way of knowing how much car driving experience you have. I don't know this for certain, but my guess is they'll assume you've been driving a car for 16 years like most people who get their licenses at 16. If you're 32, that is 16 years. I just know no carriers ever ask me how much car experience I had. They just assume I have it if I have a license. However, if you don't get some experience in a car first, they may be able to tell you're a complete novice when they road test you at your first job orientation. In fact, I'm guessing they will know. Listen, every new trucker screws up during their road test at their first prospective employer. It's inevitable. You're going to grind some gears, take some turns a bit too tight or a bit too loose, and take forever to back the truck into the spot they point you at. What they're really looking at is how you handle yourself in these situations and how you resolve the problems that you're faced with. Now, honestly, I just don't think I can give you an exact time for car driving experience that will make you a good truck driver. Driving, it's just like so many other things. Some people pick it up fast, some people learn more slowly, some people are never truly comfortable behind the wheel. My guess is it'll take you less time than expected because you are 32 and you have the mental focus and life experience to not freak out like a younger guy would. But here's the thing. The much larger size of a tractor trailer is hard to get used to, even if you're extremely comfortable driving a car. It's been that way for nearly every trucker I've talked to, especially the new ones who it's fresh on their mind. A lot of these old timers out here act like they were born with a tractor stuck to their ass. Oh, sorry. Did I just say ass? I did say ass. I said it 3 more times. Wow. Twice more. Anyway, wow. I don't know if I'll edit that out or not. I may. The only advice I know I can give you is that you should feel completely comfortable driving a car before you even try to learn to drive a truck. And by that, I mean you should be able to drive in all sorts of situations while carrying on a conversation with someone in the car. You should always feel relaxed while driving. If you have to think about the steps you need to take before doing something like a lane change, then you're not ready to drive a truck. That stuff needs to be second nature. It really does. Because switching lanes in a car is gravy compared to doing it in a truck. You know, I have a 19-year-old nephew that never learned to drive. He's had his learner's permit for over a year now, but quite frankly, he still sucks at parking. If you talk to him while he's driving, he loses focus on the road. He forgets to look before changing lanes. He has trouble nosing into a parking space without his full attention. All these things should be automatic responses that can be completed without really thinking about it. Kind of like brushing your teeth, you know? You don't have to concentrate on it. You just do it. Now, his younger brother, who's 16, he picked up driving pretty quick and seems fairly comfortable already. So, like I said, you just never know from person to person. The bottom line is that until driving a car becomes second nature, I just wouldn't try to learn to drive a truck. Not only do you have a lot more vehicle size to deal with, but there's also additional things you'll be worrying about, such as shifting gears, which is a lot harder than shifting a manual car. You'll be worried about lane position, blind spots, crazy four-wheelers, and not being able to look in a rear-view mirror, or over your right shoulder for that matter. You know, you only got side mirrors on a truck. You just really need to master the basics in a car before hopping into a big rig. Seriously. Granted, this is just my opinion. I know this probably isn't what you wanted to hear, but I just think you'll have a hard time learning to drive a truck until you're comfortable in a car. Also, I wouldn't want you spending money on a truck driving school until you're truly ready. I don't think they give refunds if you fail. While there are driving schools who will pass anyone with enough money to pay the tuition, if you can't actually drive when you graduate, you'll likely have a hard time getting hired. You said you just read Trucking Life. Well, if you remember right, there was a guy I talked about in the book who he went to a CDL farm. It took him like 2 weeks. Might take him 3 weeks. I don't even remember in my own book now. But anyway, it was a quick school. The first company that he drove for was where we were at, and they sent him home because he couldn't shift gears. Well, he could upshift, but he couldn't downshift. So every time he missed a gear or whatever, he would have to come to a complete stop and then start over from scratch. And that just didn't cut it with the trainer. He knew that was going to be a problem, so he sent him home. Like I said, you don't have to be able to shift gears when you're a rookie perfectly, but you do have to be able to keep a cool head and not come to a complete stop, to keep the truck moving. Because, well, that's not really keeping the truck moving, is it? If you're coming to a complete stop in the middle of a road. Anyway, let me give you one final word on truck driving schools. And this goes for anybody out there who's thinking about getting into truck driving and you haven't gone to truck driving school yet. If you do decide to go to truck driving school, don't try to cut corners by going to a driving school that has trucks with automatic transmissions or shorter trailers. While that might make it easier to get your CDL, you'll have a hard time finding a job since most carriers are using 10-speed manuals with full-size 53-foot trailers. My advice is to find a school that has trucks with that exact same setup. I emailed back and forth with a guy a while back who gave up because of this very situation. He learned to drive a 13-speed with a short trailer. He did get his CDL, but he didn't pass the driving test at his first company. Since he had trained in a shorter trailer, he was taking the corners way too tight and running over curbs, and he was having bad lane control, and it just didn't go very well. And he was missing gears because he was used to the pattern of a 13-speed instead of the 10-speed that he was trying to take the test in. It was just not a very good situation. In the end, he lost hope and quit. He went on to a different career before he even got started. And that's just sad because he was really pumped about entering the industry. So anyway, just a word to the wise to anyone who's getting ready to go to truck driving school or even thinking about it. Anyway, Anthony, I hope this helps you and all the other potential truck drivers out there. If any of you have any further questions about anything, don't hesitate to ask, because no question is too stupid when you're getting into a new career. Except for maybe, do you want some chocolate chip cookies? That's a really stupid question. But hey, you want to know why else Anthony is one of my favorite people in the world? Because he wrote me back and he says, "Thank you for such an in-depth response. I've donated $20 to abouttruckdriving.com as this was really helpful for me and no doubt took significant time on your end to write." Well, you're right about that, Anthony. It really did. But yeah, that was not necessary, but I do appreciate it. He goes on and says, I was really struggling with this issue and unsure of what to do. I asked on reddit.com as well and the truckersreport.com, and they were quite divided, but nobody explained why quite like you did. He says, if I end up going this route, pun intended, I'm currently in IT and haven't decided yet if I'll abandon ship and go into trucking just yet. Is there a particular trucking school that stands out above all the rest of them? I have significant savings so I can afford to go to an independent trucking school, as most recommend. Yes, I recommend. And not a company that happens to train its drivers. I will keep your note in mind about 10-speed manuals and full-size trailers. Anyway, thanks for all the information you provided. And of course, this led to another answer, right? And it was another long email. So anyway, I was glad to do it. I wrote back. First, I think it's a smart decision to stay away from in-house trucking company schools. They can be great if a person is strapped for cash, but then they're tied to that company typically for a year to pay off the loan. If you don't like that company, well, tough noogies. Either that or you can quit before your contract is up and they charge you for the remaining balance. Now, in my experience, these companies pay less per mile too because they've got you trapped with that contract. I think it's better to go to an independent school and be able to shop around for better jobs while you're in school. You'll likely have recruiters come to your school, but you don't have to go with any of them. The trucking world is your oyster. Ooh, yuck, oysters. Many companies will require at least 1 year of driving experience, but there are still plenty to choose from that will hire newbies. Now, I wouldn't say there's one particular trucking school or chain of school that stands out. Just be careful choosing. You know, there's a lot of CDL farms out there that'll pass anyone with a pulse. They can do this because often the school instructors just so happen to also be the state licensed road testers. How convenient. So even if you suck at driving, they can still pass you to make their school's passing rate look good. I would suggest, and I know this is a bit controversial, that the shorter the school, the less prepared you're going to be when you graduate. That's because you need time behind the wheel. There's just no substitute for it. And it's harder to get that in a shorter school. Basically, I'm just going to say it. No 2-week schools. I'm sure there's plenty of drivers out here who have gone through a 2-week school and they're just fine, but I bet you it was a lot harder for them to make the transition. Anyway, I've never heard anything good about a 2-week school. 3 weeks is honestly pushing it in my opinion, but like I said, there's plenty of successful drivers out here who went to 3-week schools. So if you want to go to the 3-week school, I won't scold you if you want to go that route. Pun intended. Payback. But hey, Anthony, if you aren't in a particular rush, I'd look at trucking schools that are associated with an accredited school, like a local community college or a tech school. I don't know why, I just think they have higher standards being tied to a credible school. The Evil Overlord and I went to a 6-week course at a community college. Not only was it a good experience, but we were able to get some grants to help with the costs. Now, like I said in the last email, remember, no one thinks they're ready to take a road test at an actual trucking company after they graduate. But remember that any carrier who hires students straight out of school, they'll set their testing standards lower. They know you're going to grind some gears. They know you'll make stupid mistakes because you're nervous. They'll also know you'll get better after they send you out with a company trainer for a few weeks. I say all that because the Evil Overlord and I felt the same way when we took our first road test. But our road tester, who is a very experienced driver, told us we did way better than most newbies. He chalked it up to us having more time behind the wheel due to our 6-week course. If you'll remember from the book, that other guy that got sent home from the orientation class got sent home because he never learned how to downshift properly in his 3-week school. So it was 3 weeks. Having said that, our school was probably a bit of overkill, to be honest. We went 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. I'd say that the happy medium is a 4-week school with 3 weeks a minimum. Another thing you want to ask about when it comes to trucking schools is how many students per truck. 3 to 4 students per truck plus instructor, that's pretty standard. You'll switch off driving with the other students. It's actually quite helpful because you get to watch them drive. Perhaps they downshift better than you and you can see how they're doing it. Or maybe they're better at backing. The Evil Overlord wasn't sure if she could drive trucks at all. But it turns out she was actually a better backer than most of her fellow students, so she actually wound up helping them get better. Just be wary of too many students per truck. I drove by a school the other day that had 3 trucks moving on the driving course, but there must have been 20 people sitting around in lawn chairs waiting their turn. That's not good. You're not learning anything if you're just sitting there watching. Now, these are all standard things to ask when searching for a trucking school. Find out how many students per truck. Find out how many driving hours you'll get. And for the record, they should have a required amount of drive time per student, not per truck. Now, I wish I could tell you how many driving hours is good, but quite honestly, it's been so long ago, that's like 21 years ago, that my old rotten brain doesn't remember. Just call some schools and compare their drive time. And if they can't tell you how much drive time you'll get, well, I'd say that's a red flag. Again, maybe I'm wrong about this. Some of you drivers who have searched for jobs recently or just come out of driving school recently, you tell me about this. Straighten me out on this. Am I wrong about it? I think I'm right, but, hey, that's the way I roll. I always think I'm right about everything. Clearly I'm not. But anyway, I appreciate you writing in, Anthony, and I hope that helped you and any other trucker out there, or not trucker, but potential trucker, somebody who's thinking about getting into the industry. I'm sure maybe a lot of you experienced drivers have already shut this off. I hope you didn't, because I'd love to hear if I gave good advice or not. Anyway, I guess that about does it for feedback, and I guess that does it for the show, right? Again, I'd like to thank Allie, Tim, and Anthony for their emails. And again, I'd like to thank Driver Dave for finally getting off his butt and sending in an audio comment. I was thinking the other day how I've got a second Trucker Grub from Dave, and I've got another one from Dustin, who we heard from in the last podcast also. So clearly me doing a little butt chewing, making you guys feel kind of guilty about not sending me audio comments for Trucker Grub kind of paid off, because I got some waiting in the wings, and Dustin has already promised to do some more. And like I said, Dave has actually got some recipes he's going to share with us, which I'm kind of branching out. Thinking about, he brought that up. I'm kind of thinking about branching out on Trucker Grub. I think I mentioned that earlier. Anyway. Let's wrap this sucker up. All right, where's that music? All right, as always, I'd appreciate your suggestions and comments on anything you've heard today or in the past many years, as far as that goes. All my contact information can be found at abouttruckdriving.com, and you can also find show notes from this episode by searching for TD132. Hey, would you do me a favor? If you don't actually subscribe to the podcast, would you please do that? It helps my numbers quite a bit. It's pretty easy to do. If you have an iPhone, just tell Siri, "Hey Siri, subscribe to Trucker Dump Podcast." Or if you have an Android phone, just say, "Okay Google, play Trucker Dump Podcast." Thanks, I really appreciate it. So as always, thanks for listening. Until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Hey there, how y'all doing out there? Hey there, how y'all doing out there? That's a bad opening. This show is sponsored by the Escort Mobile. This show is sponsored by the Escort Mobile. What's next on the list? Ugh. And the final reason they named I-5 in Washington, Oregon, is one of the best locations is because there are a lot of, it's got a high incident. Now, personally, I'm one of the most non-confrontational people. Is that the right word? Yeah, I think so. Now, personally, I'm one of the most Anyway, he looks at me with utter bewilderment. Bewilderment. That's a hard word to say. Anyway, he looks at me with utter bewilderment. Anyway, he looks at me with utter bewilderment. Bewilderment. What is that word? Why did I write it? Well, I guess that's possible if you're a bad trucker who doesn't. Well, I guess that is possible if you're a bad trucker who isn't paying attention to his. Well, I guess that is possible if you're a bad trucker who isn't paying attention to his. Good Good Lord. How hard is it to say that? Most of what keeps newcomers away from truck driving. And if the altercation escapes. For all I know, his head might be so big that it's. For all I know, his head might actually be so big that it caused its own orbit. The bottom line is that until a driver. The bottom line is that until a driver. The bottom line is that until a drive. Still a driving. Anyway, I'd like to thank Allie, Tim, and Anthony for their emails. And again, I'd like to thank Driver Dave for finally sucking it up and sending in a Trucker Grump. Trucker Grump. Clearly I picked a bad name. I can't even say it. Hey, I thought I would tell... Hey, we got just a couple more here. I thought I would tell you about this... I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. What am I saying? Cha.